All right. All right. So we're live both now. So we're going to talk a little bit about prepping the body now. So there's a base protocol that I always start off with everybody. I don't care if we're treating IBS or MS or we're just trying to get people healthy, weight loss, whatever we're trying to do. The first thing that we do is we focus on because I always tell people health is good chemicals in versus bad chemicals out. And so we focus on the bad chemicals out first. The problem is that, think of it this way. You have a room, lots of nasty, dirty boxes in it. And you want to clean out those nasty, dirty boxes and put good, clean boxes in. You got to get the boxes out first. So the detox, the flushing out is the most important part. There's a couple different ways that you can do detox. The very best way is to feed the organs that do the detox anyway and allow them to do the things that they were designed to do. That's typically the way that we do it. The limiting reagent is always kidney. Kidney in Eastern medicine is the wellspring of life. So anxiety, depression, blood pressure, things like that have a large piece of function with the kidney. And like I said, it's usually your limiting reagent. So whenever we have an issue, a detox reaction, people say, hey, started taking this stuff, started feeling like I have the flu, started getting cramps, started feeling just kind of run down. It's always go to the kidney. And so we'll go to kidney, we'll knock that out. Kidney castor packs are one of my favorites. I made an oil called CW4 that I like a lot. There's a couple different products we use for the Superior Kidney is on the Seawell store and the Pillars of Wellness. We use that one a lot. If you're going to do kidney castor packs, quick thing on that, 3 sheets cotton flannel, each one independently covered in castor oil. You cannot use them over again. Once you've done them, you got to throw them away. You're looking at 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So kind of try to get that 45-minute mark. And use a far infrared heat source. The far infrared is going to make that penetrate a lot deeper, and it's going to really get that really going to supercharge the cleansing. And if you can do the kidneys between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., that's going to be the best point because that's usually when the kidneys do their own detox anyway. So you just supercharge that time. Then we move on to liver. Liver's one of the, I'm a big liver guy. So I tell everybody the cleaner your liver is, the cleaner everything else is. And people are like, well, what about your gut? And it's like, well, what do you think pulls the inflammation out of your gut? The job of the liver is to clean the blood and the lymph. So if the liver is clean enough and it has all the nutrients it needs, methylated B6 and, all this stuff to make glutathione and all the stuff it needs, methylated, like I said, methylated B vitamins. When you go through milk thistle, that type of thing, when you go through and you clean the liver then cleans the blood and the lymph. The blood and the lymph then clean every other tissue in the body. And remember, this is all done by osmosis. So, so we're looking at osmolality function. So if the liver and the blood are just as dirty as each other, the liver is not going to pull anything out of the blood. If you make the liver cleaner, then all of a sudden the dirt and the trash and the gunk from the lymph and the blood can now pour into the liver. And it'll start to kind of even those two things out again. So you have to constantly clean the liver because as the blood and the lymph get cleaner, the tissues, the heart, the gut, the intestines, the brain, all those things can now offload or dump all their toxins into the blood and the lymph like they're designed to. And then, like I said, the system goes through blood and lymph and go to the liver and get clean. Kidneys obviously do a big job of this cleaning as well. But like I said, if you just kind of make sure the kidneys can do whatever they want to and focus on the liver at the beginning, you're going to have a lot better plan. Once those two things get flowing and we start detoxing those things, usually that takes a week to a month, we can really start leaning in on the gut. Now, here's the deal. Most people have parasites not only in their intestines, but in their liver. So when we talk about cleaning the liver, we're going to have to kill the parasites as well. So what I typically will do is make sure we give about a week so the kidneys are kind of good to go. The liver started kind of doing its thing. Then we can start going through and killing the parasites. My favorite piece for that is coffee enemas. It's the only thing in the world that I know is it's the cheapest, it's the fastest, and it's the best. Normally, you can pick 2 of those 3, but in this case, it is by far the best. The downside is that you have to get used to doing enemas or sticking things in your butt, which is not that big of a deal. Every single person I've worked with has told me that it is substantially bigger in their head than it was as a real thing. So I tell everybody the first one's gonna be weird. It's gonna be awkward. It's it's gonna be the worst one easily. Second one's a lot better because you've done it before, and so you know what to expect. And you're like, okay, I've run through this once. By the third one, you're more concerned with what's on Netflix than you are with what's going on. So it's not that big of a deal. Just start knocking them out. The more of those you do, the faster you clean the liver. Some of the other things I love for liver, TUDCA is one of my favorite things for liver. That one does really, really well. So, if you're not familiar with TUDCA, look that one up. That one's spectacular. You got to use that one a little bit carefully though. It's basically synthetic bile, and that really, really, really helps put everything together. When I say synthetic bile, the only way to get real bile is to stick a tube into an animal or into a person and suck it out, which is, as you can imagine, unbelievably inhumane. So we can just be like, hey, what's in that chemical? And then we can put it all together, and then we're good to go. So the TUDCA works great. Like I said, methylated B vitamin, specifically methylated B6, because that's what makes those gallstones dissolve. So speaking of gallstones, there's no such thing as gallstones. This is my ring. This is my hand. This is my ring in my hand. It's not a hand ring. It's a ring that's in your hand. Gallstones are really liver stones that are in the gallbladder. And it's important that we understand this because when the liver loses methylated B6, the bile salts, which are supposed to be really slick and oily, like a WD-40 consistency, well, when they lose B6, they fall out of suspension. So they turn into like a rubber cement. That's where they get the little balls and they get really gooey. And then those balls from the liver tubules get tossed in the gallbladder. They get squished together in larger balls. And then people go, oh, look, you have gallstones. No, you don't. You have liver stones in the gallbladder. The reason this is important is because if you cut the gallbladder out and go, I fixed the problem, you didn't even start on the problem. The problem has always been in the liver. You just cut out the bag that the liver puts the stuff into. So you haven't helped yourself at all. So that's the kind of issue with that. As the liver gets cleaner, then you can move on and do whatever else you want to do. So, as you kill the parasites both in the gut and the liver, you're always going to have a yeast issue because as the parasites kill the probiotics, that space, that vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum. Since there's nothing there, the yeast will then, that's naturally in your body, will just overgrow. And so you have to knock that yeast out. Now, typically what we'll see when that happens is you start to have inflammation to the brain, to the body, from the parasites and the waste they produce. So oftentimes you'll have memory issues. You walk into rooms, forget why you went in there. In the middle of a sentence, you'll lose track of what you're talking about. You gut-wise, you go back and forth between loose stools and constipation and gas and bloating and that type of stuff. Just your gut's not working right. Now, here's the other thing. As we talked about this before, when your gut starts getting off, you quit producing serotonin because that's where all your serotonin's made, is in the gut. So you've got to have to start kind of watching that because you're going to start seeing depression issues. You're going to start seeing, negative thoughts and just kind of, type of a lifestyle. So you bring the serotonin back up with amino acids, specifically tryptophan to 5-HTP, H5-HTP to serotonin. So that's the pathway. And so you kind of build those things back up. And as you get those things built back up, then you can start actually feeding the body, and the body will then feed the adrenals. The adrenals are responsible for fluid levels in the bowel. They're responsible for ADD, ADHD function because they keep the reticular formation of the brain awake. So as the blood pressure as well. So as you start getting those things to kind of come back online, this is kind of the base that we do. And lots of people, regardless of their issues, start coming back and be like, okay, now I feel a lot better. Right, because your body can get the nutrients in it needs, and it can get the waste it wants out. Good chemicals in, bad chemicals out. As it starts doing this, your body is literally designed to heal itself. So if you give it the chemicals it needs and you get rid of the waste it can't have, all of a sudden, the body heals itself. This is where a lot of these things happen. So then if there's something secondary to that, like you have a disease process that's creating dementia or MS or something like that, we can then specifically target that. If you have ulcerative colitis, we need more work on the gut. There's things we can do with that. I will always try to bring everybody's testosterone levels up because I want things to heal. Your body cannot heal with that testosterone. So we've got to check that as well. So when we bring people in, the first thing we do is we usually do a blood test on them, make sure that where their blood's at, hormones, insulin, that type of thing. The amount of people I've had to tell they're diabetic is astounding. But doctors, like I said, they want to treat and manage the disease. They don't want to, repair it and fix it. So they don't even pull insulin. They tell people it's a blood sugar issue, which it's not. If your blood sugar goes up, you don't have a blood sugar issue. If it stays up, you have an insulin issue. Diabetes is an insulin issue because your blood sugar stays up. It's pretty simple. I'm very, very shocked at how people don't understand this. I'll talk to doctors, I'll talk to people all the time. And they're like, why do you pull insulin? I'm like, because I want to fix metabolic issues like diabetes. And they go, don't you mean blood sugar? No, I mean insulin. So, again, those are some of those things that you've got to check on: testosterone, insulin, that type of thing. But once those two things get regulated, the body can heal and the sugar's not damaging you. I got a patient in the other day who he's been to lots of doctors and they can't figure out where the numbness and the tingling and the neuropathy he has is coming from in his feet. And I talked to him for about 5 minutes and he was like, oh yeah, I've checked my sugars. They're at 160, 170, on a fairly regular basis. I'm like, okay, great. They obviously, over 5 years, they've missed your diabetic neuropathy. Super easy. 2 questions, got that one knocked out. So we're going to fix that. But that's the thing, people aren't pulling the right labs, and so they're not catching this stuff. So that's how we start by prepping the body. So the vast majority of people who are going to come in are going to start there. About 60, maybe 70% of them, that's all they need. They have these horrible, they feel terrible, their energy's trash, the mental state's terrible, and they're just miserable. And so we'll walk them through that. Everybody has a little bit different differentiation on that. They'll need to take a little bit more, a little bit less, that type of thing. But that's kind of where we always start. So if you're wondering where you should start, that's how you do it. So just go through and do that type of stuff. If you need help from the office, we can ship you the stuff we use. There's a protocol I've developed called the Primary Detox that is a little heavy, but it works for small people. It works for large people. It works for pretty much everybody. I prefer to bring people in and actually get them tested and get them on Thera and get them reset. But we'll do what we got to do. If someone's like, I'm in Minnesota, I'll buy all the stuff, just ship it up to me because it'd be more expensive for me to fly down there than just do the larger detox. So that's fine too. But one of the big things I want to start making sure I talk about is the reason that I'm doing all this is for the charity treeoflife.health. We're using psychedelics and ketamine to break PTSD and addiction in veterans and first responders. So if you guys, are looking for a place to get your supplements, get them from pillarsofwellness.com, get them from the Seawell store. It's basically the same thing. And the proceeds for that all go to the charity. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to, 1, help all these guys out, and 2, spread the knowledge and the idea that psychedelics and ketamine have been proven since the 60s to be able to fix PTSD and addiction 85% of the time. Not like, again, we're not treating it. We knock a giant chunk of it out. Like the amount of things people have been telling me, I've talked to veterans and they're like, I know what all my guns taste like. And I've heard that so many times. It's a horrible thing to have to hear because I know these guys are serious. And I talked to one guy and he was like, I don't know what they taste like, but they've been in my hands more than one time. And I'm like, okay. So you can take guys and women from that position down to my life's great, everything's fine, that constant pressure, that constant, buzz, that constant, is gone. And so it's phenomenal to be able to work with these guys. Like I said, the research shows 85% of the time we get, pretty solid, almost complete resolution. I have not worked with anybody or talked to anybody yet who said it didn't help them at all. I've talked to people who said it didn't help their pain, but it fixed their mind. I've talked to people who said that their addiction's much better. It's not all the way gone, but it's much better and they're more focused and their lives are more calm and relaxed. So, this is what we're doing for these veterans. This is what we're doing for these guys. So if you guys are looking for a place to buy your supplements, get them from Pillars of Wellness, get them from the Seawell store, because all of the proceeds are going to go to the charity to help these guys out, so men and women. If you guys have any other questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, and we'll get to those on Friday. All right. Thanks for your time.